Welcome to the Summit for Wellness podcast, where we help you climb to the peak of your health. And now, here is your host, Brian Carroll.
Hello and welcome to the Summit for Wellness podcast. I am your host, Brian Carroll, and today's episode is brought to you by Hana One, which is an Ayurvedic herbal blend that I love to use to help support my immune system and for its adaptogenic properties, which helps to reduce the stress levels at the cellular level. It's a product I highly recommend and I love to use it. So go check it out at summitforwellness.com/HANAH. Okay, we are all pretty familiar with the 5 different senses of the body, such as sight, smell, touch, taste, and hearing. But could there potentially be a 6th sense that we might not know a whole lot about? Well, my guest today, Godelieve of BeFitAnywhere.com, is here to talk to us about this idea of a 6th sense of the body. So if you are curious, then let's dive into this episode and have a little chit-chat with Godelieve to learn how this 6th sense has evaded us for so long. So let's get right to our interview. Godelieve is on a mission to reunite your body with the ability to play and stay fit through exercise by providing quality personal training and fitness services to those who prefer to exercise in a non-gym environment. Thanks, Godelieve, for coming onto the show.
Hey, it's nice to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
So I know you are a fitness trainer, but I would love to hear a little bit more about your background. What brought you into the fitness field?
Well, actually, I'll try to keep a long story short, but I used to be a banker for 15 years and was a gym rat. And I used to actually work out very hard in the gym. And as most people do without proper training, I got hurt. So when I eventually left the banking field to raise my children, that I went starting in the fitness industry, looking for work there, and landed up becoming a personal trainer because I was one of those people that were broken, and it was my mission then to train people properly so they wouldn't be broken like I did. So, and from there, I became a certified personal trainer, a Group X instructor. Then I got into kickboxing and boxing fitness and body sculpting and indoor spin, all the traditional things that you would find in a gym. So that kind of was how it got me into the fitness field.
Yeah, and it sounds like you just dove straight into it. What was the transition like, though, from being a banker to becoming a fitness trainer?
Well, the thing that was different is that I didn't have to wear a suit anymore. So, but the things that was really nice that when I was in the banking field, I ran the branches. I was in a advertising and in the corporate side of it, and I had my staff, and I always liked to coach, train, and develop them, and see them move on and move forward. So when I ran operational meetings for the assistant branch managers and where I took all that desire, I brought into my training of the clients. And I've had a couple of people that worked under me here at the studio, and I got to coach, train, and develop them. So education has always been my driver, because once you own your information, you can take it anywhere, and that that you most likely can make the best decision to stay safe.
And so we know with a lot of fitness trainers that when they get into the field, they're taught very traditional type exercises, very traditional lifts. At what point did you decide to start expanding outside of the norm and start learning more about the stuff that they teach at like the Gray Institute and more of the functional movement type of approach?
Well, I always thought that there was something wrong, because a lot of times, as I say, people get done with dumbbells, and a lot of injuries come from that approach. So when I would be working with the women in the gym, I would always put some form of vested interest, as if they were doing a low row, instead of pulling the weight up and down the stack, I would end up saying, grab your child from the ribs and tell them to come here. and then lower your child back down. Or another one be if they had their elbows out and doing an upright row, I would say, okay, it's a dirty child, and put your dirty child back down. So it'll end up being a whole body of experience versus just an arm and a dumbbell. And that always inspired me then to take that whole body approach. And when I got introduced to applied functional science with the Gray Institute, it was just a natural fit.
And I'm curious, when you start putting more of real life situations into the exercises like that, do you see that translate into more compliance from the clients that you're working with, or is there not really a correlation there?
Oh, I definitely get more compliance. Not always necessarily that they're going to do their exercise program, but where I get compliance is in the daily action of the move. So when you have an elder person, let's say, that has to take a stack of plates from the counter and put them into up into the cabinet, that they're going to remember that we did that exercise, and I get compliance in the daily action, not necessarily compliance in that they're going to do the workout, which, in my opinion, is more important.
Right. It gives people context for what it is they're trying to do and what the exercises are for. Now, you also mentioned that with exercises, you're trying to get the whole body involved, which is a great lead into utilizing our 5 different senses that we know of. Can you talk about those 5 different senses?
Well, Brian, actually, we make comment that there's 5 senses, but in my opinion, there's 6. And that is utilizing the neurosystem, or as we would say, the proprioceptive system of the body. And that is the internal communication where the nervous system then talks to the brain and then talks back to the body. We are very, very busy that we don't hear what the body is saying. And so if you have your traditional senses of sight, touch, hearing, suddenly I forgot about the other 2, but we know what they are. How does your body know that when you have an arm elevated in the air? You can't taste it, you can't smell it, you can't feel it. So how does your body know? And that is the 6th sense. That's the proprioceptive sense. That's the communication of the muscles and the bones, the connective tissue, talking back to the brain. And it's a very, very powerful system.
So can you go a little bit more into how the proprioceptors work with the body? Like, what are all the different systems that they can help out with, and how do we start communicating more with them?
Well, knowing that there's going to be a little bit more of the science in this, I actually went through it just to refresh my memory, because I've been trained on this level for so long, that you have your exteroceptors that kind of give you a stimulus about what's going on outside of the body. Are you being sensitive to heat? Is there cold? Things that are nearby, but not necessarily on you. Then you have your interoceptors, and they're the pieces that tell you what your blood pressure is. Are you thirsty? What the stretch of your organs are, where everything's positioned, how big, if your lungs are expanded or not. That internal system is there. But the proprioceptors, there's several of them. You've got your Golgi tendon organs, you've got your muscle spindles, your Rapini endings, and your areas of touch. That those areas in the body is like a silent language. And when you come in tune to be understanding that there is this fabulous language and 6th sense in your body, you can tap into it and become much stronger, because it's a communication with your whole body. And when you start in one section, you can feel how one area talks to the next area, which we would then call a chain reaction.
So as we talk about proprioceptors that help with different bone positions and the muscle and the fascia and the tension within the system, how can we apply that to our exercise programs and the way that we move? Like, what should we be looking for, and how should we be training these proprioceptors?
Well, the most simple example that I start with my clients, because whenever I start talking about this, I truly get the deer in the headlight look, because it's like so foreign and so out there, but it's so close. It's inside you. So I take a simple approach where I say, all right, take your big toe and then press it down into the ground. Nothing else. Feel how the tension happens in your foot. Feel how you feel tension up into the leg. Feel how you feel tension up to the knee. Feel how you have tension up to the thigh. And better yet, feel the tension all the way into the pelvic bowl, which, right inside the belly. And as the client is just listening to this chain of energy and tension, then I say, okay, do it again and do it again. And sometimes when they finally get that point, and I said, all right, now start it from the belly and reach out and pull the toe down. So it starts being like an electromagnetic ping pong of being that starting from the core to reach out for a desired action versus taking the desired action and trying to bring it back, reel it back home. And when they realize that power, then then everything lights up, and then I have a very strong, attentive, present body that is willing to learn.
So when we are looking at the proprioceptors, and you mentioned earlier that a lot of your journey into the fitness world began with getting injured, how can we work with the proprioceptors to allow the bones and the joints and the muscles and everything within the body to move in a way that prevents us from getting an injury during some kind of movement or exercise?
The way I would utilize that to prevent any, or if an area is been injured or sensitive to movement that it doesn't desire or it's unfamiliar with, that what we can do is then turn it, that as the client is dealing with the fear, which I usually ask, I go, is this perceived pain or is it real pain? That when we go to do a move, that when they start feeling that little bit of pain in the area, then we stop that and we make that a threshold, because that's an area of discomfort. I want the body to feel safe. And if the body feels safe, then it's going to relax and allow other different areas of the body to participate. And we can do that by utilizing the proprioceptive component. So if someone is pressing, they're afraid that their low back is going to hurt. And it's like, well, feel the cushion underneath your seat. Feel how the pants are hugging up against your legs. And I bring them so in tune with what their body is experiencing that the body lands up correcting itself and then lands up securing the area of potential pain, so that the body becomes relaxed and supported at the same time by a sense of awareness of where they stand in position.
Also, when we're looking at kind of exercises and proprioception, what do you think of if I was a professional soccer athlete and all I did was traditional exercises or traditional lifts, and then I expect to go out onto the playing field to play at the best capabilities? What do you think the proprioceptors are going to be able to do, and how will they be able to perform at that type of level?
Wow, that's a tricky question. Because as a typical answer would be, that depends. I didn't say before, but I'm a fellow of the Gray Institute with the GIFT program. And also I studied in applied functional science, so that's a true answer of it depends. Well, I would say, depending on the type of, you said traditional fitness training, which usually takes place in the sagittal plane of motion, which is that forward and backward action. And the body is not going to be as familiar of the side to side and the rotation. So the proprioceptors are going to probably go, whoa, what are you doing to me? And it's a totally scary position to be in for the body. So either it's going to shut it down before it gets hurt, or it's going to get hurt, and then it's going to scream at them for mistraining for that sport. And then you're landing up with that would probably be more of a soft tissue, and that takes a long time to heal.
Yeah, which could definitely be a factor for why we see so many ACL injuries and hamstring injuries within a lot of different sports, and not just soccer, is because a lot of the programs that are traditionally training these athletes aren't training the proprioceptors like what you're talking about.
Exactly. They're not training them and putting them in a position that they could take them into threshold and train the body to be in that zone that it's going to be past threshold and be able to come home with control. If it gets past that threshold, there's no way home and being able to get the body back into a safe position. There's almost no way around injury. And if they did not get injured, the body did a great job at those proprioceptors detecting injury and then just shutting the body down and keeping it safe. Unfortunately, the emotion and gets hurt, and they seem like when they failed on something, because why should the body shut down? And you get the emotional bump on that, but the body is safe and we can work through the emotional bump.
And to just bring this into more context other than just sports, this same strategy, this same issue that we're talking about can be applied in a lot of different ways, such as if you're always training in a fast way during your exercise programs, and then you do a small little turn in your kitchen to grab some ingredients for the dish that you're making, and you mess up your meniscus or something like that. Those are more real life scenarios that happen pretty often, and we don't fully understand what led up to it, but a lot of times it's the way that we have worked with the proprioceptors leading up to that point.
Yes. And I do train a lot of athletes, and especially a lot of golfers, where the small movements are really critical to a proper swing, and the small movements are critical to taking out a tray of cookies from the oven or a turkey. And I actually had one client who destroyed her low back taking out a tray of cookies because she took it out with one hand, and she was all ready, to take out this thin line of cookies, where it ended up being a little heavier than she expected, and the body wasn't ready for it. But with that, so our training program, we brought her back into a safe position, and I am known in the area that I am the queen of subtle movement, and I wear my tiara with pride. So, so I brought the client into a nice, simple position, seated and stuff of that nature, and I start waking up the thoracic spine. I start separating the shoulder girdle from the thoracic spine, and I have them feel each small movement, and then change hand position, and then start waking up the body, and they start feeling it. And the one thing they say is, wow, I did not know my body could talk to me like this. And the relationship that shows up. So when they go and get ready to take out the turkey, again, full investment, it's a 20-pound turkey. Every single part of that body is going to be ready. Like I said earlier with the low row, dirty child, clean child, pick them up, put them down. That the same investment of doing a tray of cookies is not the same, because that's not as big of a mess. So, yeah, but having that communication wake up and have that compliance in every single move, whether you're getting up and down off the ground, whether you're in sports, whether you're a new mother, or you're a desk executive and you have to bend over to the file cabinet and you do that little small motion, and then you're tweaked into pain.
Following that, a fantastic way to strategically work with the proprioceptors to make changes within the body is to follow the principle, strategy, and technique phases that we have learned from the Gray Institute. So can you talk about some of the principles that we know and how that feeds into the strategies and techniques that you can use to work with the proprioceptors?
Well, following the there's different ways I can approach that. Being that the principles of truth, we know about gravity, we know about mass and momentum, we know about all those other things. We understand that the principles of pushing and pulling. But the other part of the principle that I go into using the proprioceptive system is that as human beings, we have a voice, but your body has also a voice. And being that your body has a voice, it wants to be heard. And how is it going to be heard? So we need to follow the same rules as if we're going into a therapy session or just being present with somebody, that, as we know, in order to be totally present, we have one mouth and two ears, and it was set up for that reason. So in taking the strategy of that, we're going to listen to the body that has a voice and it wants to be heard. And then we close everything down, become 100% present with that. Then we can start building a technique in order to start having the body be able to speak. And the way it's going to speak is through pain, or it's going to speak through pleasure. And when you hear what it wants to say through the exercises, as I may have someone just press down on a peanut on their lap and then feel the space in their vertebrae and chest and be able to suddenly breathe, that is a technique relying on the strategy that we're going to listen to what it says, which then lays back on the truth that the body has a voice and it wants to be heard. So applying that over and over and testing it forward and backwards, that the client sees results in less than 2 weeks of sessions, that I actually have something solid to build upon. And not better yet, my client understands where I'm coming from. They buy into it because they're in the process of making the program with me.
And as you are teaching the clients how to re-listen to their body, how do you approach any previous injuries that they may have had that might be hindering them or that they're worried about?
Well, I respect the injuries. I respect the history of the body. And a lot of times we hurry through and hoping that the body heals really fast. But just as we try to gain weight, nobody tries to gain weight really fast. They try to lose weight fast. So in this case, you get hurt really fast and then you hope to heal really fast. But everything takes time. So when the body has been injured, it lands up not wanting to participate in an exercise. So a lot of the times when you get through an injury, they say, oh, I'm just going to plow through the injury. I'm going to run through this ankle pain. I'm just going to stand up and sit down through this pain. But the body doesn't want to do it. It keeps telling you that it doesn't want to play that way. So I respect when a person comes in and has the history, because not only does the body have the fear, and the proprioceptors are saying, as soon as you get motion, it's going screaming, no, that we're saying we have to comfort them, saying it's okay. We're not going near you. We're not going to beat you up. And you know what? You're successful over here. So we're going to start working where it's successful and it's happy. And then, and following the success begets success rule. I also say, if I'm going to focus an area where a client has fear and pain, that I'm not going to go there, because one of the things I use as my true way of working is misery loves company. And so I start working where the company is and making them disappear, so eventually we can soften the way to misery. And then once we get to the misery, then the client feels comfortable because all the company left the room.
I really like that. Misery likes company. That's a really, I've never heard that one before, so I'm going to have to remember that. But this type of working with someone's body sounds a lot nicer to the body than something like, we'll just throw out CrossFit, where they just keep pushing and pushing even through the injuries and they keep breaking the body down in a lot of cases. I like the approach that, if something doesn't feel right, then you move away from it, and then you can find a different way to kind of get close to it, but not moving into that uncomfortable zone.
Exactly. So when company comes over to your home, let's say, and they really want to, you're going to close the bedroom door because you don't want them in the quarters. Well, your body's the same way. It's going to shut the door on something because it doesn't want you in there, Right. So the different levels are how we approach things emotionally, how we approach things physically, and how we approach things spiritually are all the same principles. They're just on different levels of how you function. And being that I function on the body level, which I also function on the emotional and spiritual, because you can't break the three. Because where there's a body, there's emotions, there's a spirit behind it. And when you have someone who has a spirit that really wants some emotion and they want some body action, you got to try to figure out what plane you can meet them at in order to start the action. So I have a client it's getting ready for, a potential knee replacement and wants to play golf again. And it's like going, okay, and he's definitely in there, but his spirit is challenged right now because he misses his game. It's like, it's really sad. And then being able to take somebody who hasn't been able to run in a while and be able to rediscover running, that they find that hope and joy again. So it's not the exercise, it's also allowing the person, as I like to say, begin to melt. Start melting the layers of stress on them, practicing being present, releasing a little bit of body stress, which then gives the body permission to do more. So the way I like to work with the proprioceptive and pulling this all together is that I work with a client to put their eyes inside their body, meaning the proprioceptive system, so their body can serve them more. Because once they're being able to steer their body from the inside out, it's a powerful, powerful, confident, and amazing thing to discover. They become buoyant on their feet. They suddenly find space in their joints. And more than better yet, they seem to get space in their head that was not there before.
So I'm also curious, because a lot of times when you work with a client at the very beginning, it seems like they're very disconnected from all the different positions that their body can be in, and they don't really understand the different motions that the joints go, and we see a lot of, we'll just call it stiffness to make it simple, but a lot of it's just they don't have that connection to be able to move in the way that we would like them to move. So when you're working with the proprioceptors, do you see changes in, let's say, posture and positioning and all that?
Oh, absolutely. Once the body kind of starts saying that it wants to go somewhere, we start letting, like I said, when the body starts to melt and it allows the rigidity or the stiffness starting to soften, the body starts talking within itself and it starts to wiggle and it starts to shake itself out. And it's so great because the body's asking to be put back into posture without doing shoulders back, chin up, chest high. It automatically starts having that conversation. And the person's brain will say, something seems a little uncomfortable here. Body, fix yourself. And the next thing you know, the body's just rising and lowering and and adjusting itself on its own. And my client just recently had this experience who's challenging with balance issues. And she goes, I felt a little uncomfortable. And next thing I know, I'm doing this in my chair. She goes, I thought I was just having this slow, happy dance in my chair, but my body just did its own thing and resettled where it needed to be. I didn't try to fix it. It did it on its own. And I was just like high-fiving her on that one because I can imagine she's 70 years old and this is the experience. This is a melting experience. This is ownership. This is respect. It becomes love.
Yeah, and it's fantastic to have people reconnect with their body and to feel like they can move it the way that it should be moved too. It's so empowering for them.
Oh, it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. So now I don't have to worry so much about, for her to fix anything or do the right exercise. She can trust her body to guide her now where it needs to be, and that the exercise is not right or wrong. It's just the path the body's going to take, and it's going to start. And with my guidance and her awareness, it's going to then realign in the best, most efficient position it can be in a totally vested, as going back to dirty child, clean child. And then she won't become dumb picking up a dumbbell. There'll be respect for that idle weight.
Why have so many people lost that connection to their body? What has happened, or what are different factors that make it so people don't have that connection anymore?
Wow. Again, that's a really big question. I'm a real big, heavy reader of mind, body, and spirituality, such as Brene Brown, Amy Cuddy, and all that kind of work. And the amount of isolation most of us have now, also the sense that we're not sleeping, so we're just surviving, where the demands at work, that everybody thinks there's so many minutes per day. They're trying to cram so much into such a little bit amount of time that they're not paying attention. And And then with that, when you don't be paying attention, you suddenly find that you're in pain and you get an injury, as we talked about before, roughing through it. And they're not slowing down. Um, and and the people are just the eyes are in the phone. They're not seeing. So when you start putting your attention and your focus on everything else around you versus being what's going on in you, you're not going to hear it. And when people start feeling a little bit better and when they finally get hurt and they start getting a chance to heal, that they think that it's done and they can start and work totally out on that, but it's just starting to heal. One of the analogies I like to say is when you get an injury and you get your first kind of get some rest on it, you kind of put some scotch tape on it, right? And then you kind of heals a little bit. Scotch tape falls off. And then next thing you know, you could put a little bit of duct tape on it because it's feeling a little stronger, but there's still limitations because the duct tape can fall off or the packaging tape. You go a little strong, you could put duct tape on it, right? Instead of packaging tape, but it's still going to fall off. So people have to realize that as the body heals, it's a different layer of tape. It's not until you get the tape with the strings in it and everything else that you need a knife to scrape that tape off of you, that you consider yourself healed and hopefully with no scar tissue. But that takes time. And they're always so quick to get back into action and losing the tape that I used as an analogy to make them function faster. And so they end up going backwards in time and then have to go through the healing process again and again, and which is much more frustrating each and every time you do it.
Another really good point here is to also have patience and
Yes.
patience as you work through all of this.
Yes, patience is seal time. When some people go through surgeries, it's like, I don't feel like I'm doing anything. It's like, oh, yes, you are. You're doing the most important thing you need to do. You're healing. And you have to say it to them, take time to heal. It is a process. You are doing something. Doing nothing is the best thing to do. You're healing. So, you can do other things, do mindfulness and, get in and support yourself and do isometric or work with a trainer or a professional who's going to be able to work the body so it can move safely while you're healing, so it's not totally idle and you're not backpedaling into sedentary motion.
And that brings up a really good point about working with someone that knows how to work with the proprioceptors and to help you out if you are going through any kind of injury or surgery or something. It doesn't necessarily mean that you can't do anything. There could be very, very, very subtle things, and you as the queen of subtleness probably know this. You can do very subtle things to still stimulate the proprioceptors.
Absolutely. And also being aware on the proprioceptive level that if you're doing any upper body movement and you have a foot injury, to realize that chain reaction from a top-down approach is going to affect the tissue on the feet. So if you got your hands up high, it's going to pull everything up with it. So you have to be careful. You have to be knowledgeable. And that's why I take such care in educating my clients to know how their body functions, to see the tension lines. And so when they get into a conversation with somebody, that they can speak intelligently about how their body moves and then own the information. Like, what is it? What's the definition of proprio? Proprio is like one's own, so they can own their proprioceptors and hear what they're saying. It's so cool. I mean, this is where I just have too much fun. So going into it, so the proprioceptive is truly your sixth sense. So if you have sight and hearing and taste and smell and then touch, then really your sixth sense is your proprioceptive sense. It's not your seventh. It's not the seventh. That psychic ability, I say now moves to the seventh. It's got to move over. So. So that's me in a nutshell, and that's all. I was like, wow.
Mic drop right there. Godelieve, do you have any more information you would like to share about proprioceptors and the sixth sense?
Well, I would just say that this is a different way of training. We know it exists in anatomy physiology kind of way. We know that when people are in fitness training, they say the body seems to get stronger automatically in a couple of weeks because this system is turned on. But we need to become more aware that we have this beautiful communication system within our body, and it's powerful, and it keeps us safe, and it challenges us to get stronger. It's our guide. And that's what I have to say. And I would wish that more people were able to be able to get and tap into this sense on a mindful set. You can put it that way. But for those who are not into the mindful practice, you need to be mindful that this is going on inside your body. Close your eyes and listen. And it's just it's strong. It's strong. And the more of us can empower it, it's just be nice to see less injuries, to see more brave people going out there and not being afraid that their body's going to break under them, because if they listen to their body, it'll steer them the right way.
Yeah, less injuries would be extremely helpful to pretty much everyone out there. No one ever wants to be injured. So that's a really good mission that you are on. And I also like that you are trying to bring exercise to anywhere, not just a gym environment. And so that's where your website, befitanywhere.com, comes into play. Can you talk about what it is you provide at your website?
What I do there is that I do a lot of coaching. As you probably can hear just from the conversation, it's a lot of conversation. I do personal fitness programs. I do consulting, create programs for small companies. I can do some distance training, distance coaching. So I can do a lot from that are local, because your audience is global. So, I can serve locally here, where I am located in Hillsborough, New Jersey. But if you want me if I can help somebody in a distant level who can't get here, I'd be more than happy to work with them on a web or an online format that can really use my services and able to bring it out there, and also in any motivational speaking in how to bring the sixth sense into their daily lives.
And once again, that website is befitanywhere.com. That'll also be in the show notes. Are you on any social media platforms as well?
Yes, you can find me on Facebook and LinkedIn, and I think that's it right now. That's but those are the two big ones. But you can find me on Facebook. I have lots of pictures up there, and you can see so many promotions that might pop up along there as well.
Awesome, Godelieve. Thank you so much for coming on to talk about proprioceptors. I know most people don't know what the heck those things are, so I'm glad that we were able to dive into it a little bit more to talk about what it is that they can do for your body. So thank you so much.
Hey, Brian, it's a real honor coming on here today. Thank you so much. Have yourself a wonderful, wonderful proprioceptive day.
There you have it, folks. If you weren't a believer in the sixth sense before, now you have no reason not to believe it, because the proprioceptors do exist. Now, you don't need to remember all of these fancy words that we might have used in this episode. The big key takeaway from this episode is just to know that anytime you move or do anything, you are influencing your nervous system. The idea behind all of this is that you want to influence your nervous system in a way that will replicate what it is that you do on a daily basis. So if you want to learn more about Godelieve and what she is offering, then go to befitanywhere.com, and she's got a lot more information there. Also, if you have not joined our Facebook group, go to summitforwellness.com/tribe, because in this group we are going to be doing a lot more educational videos and providing a lot more resources from us within this Facebook group. So we would love to have you in there and join us in all the fun that we will be bringing for you in the next couple of months. And as always, keep climbing to the peak of your health, and we will see you next time.